Hello, my friends. My name is Adam, and this is the Leverton Review, where I am on a mission to become the most prolific reviewer of all time, and then I get myself into kind of weird side quests, like, for example, watching all of Marvel's content. So, all of that, those reviews are called Marvel Mayhem. Welcome to Marvel Mayhem. Today we're talking about a film called Generation X, which was a TV show, a made for TV movie that they produced because they wanted to create a sort of X-Men live action franchise. And so I think technically this is the first live action X-Men movie, but you're going to find it hard to find it. But if you know where to look, it's available. So what I'm going to do is I made some notes when I was watching the film, and I'm going to share them with you, and I'm going to expand on some things. So, first of all, it does feel really low budget and made for television, which makes sense because it's a made for television project. The tone and acting are very awkward and inconsistent. There's a scene where the character of Storm is in an operating room in the beginning, and it's just poorly presented and poorly acted. And this is going to be a really weird thing to criticize, but I watched this film and I also watched Captain America, the 1990 one, at the same time. And one thing that the Captain America movie did really well is that the set design was full of details which made the made the world feel really lived in and authentic. And here we have a series which is actually supposed to be set in the 90s. So that's why there's like posters and stuff, but it's so sort of inconsistent that it's hard to know initially when this is supposed to be set because one of the main characters, his family drives a sort of vintage truck, which obviously people in the 90s had vintage trucks like they have vintage trucks now. But when that's the first thing that you see in a movie or a show, you kind of assume that that's the kind of time period that the movie is set in. And also, it's really odd, but I think they filmed this. I don't know where they filmed it. Well, they did use one location that's reused in the X-Men franchise later, which I'll talk about that later. Um, but anyway, they literally painted the grass to make it greener so it would look better on television, which is really, really wild. So the actor who played Murdoch from the A Team is in this, and he is the best part of the whole shebang. He's energetic, he's entertaining, and I think actually, if you watch The Mask, a lot of the Jim Carrey's the lines that he says are straight up lifted from this performance, which is crazy because very few people actually saw this movie. And so it's kind of a weird kind of coincidence that you see bad art influencing what could arguably be called good art, and why good art steals, doesn't borrow, I think the saying goes. And that's true in that case. Um, he really chews the scenery. It's quite good. Here is the information about the plot. There is a mutant villain who can implant thoughts into people's minds. Actually, he's not a mutant. He is a he has developed technology that can implant thoughts in people's minds, and then he gets these powers, and it's kind of dangerous for the real world. So the film focuses on mutant students and school life rather than in later X-Men films, which is quite good because these are supposed to be students. And one of the main characters is playing a fighting game, and then the main villain kind of subliminally suggests something, and it turns out that she is a mutant and mutants need to be registered in this version of the story. So she uncovers her powers and she gets sent to this school as kind of a deal. So Emma Frost's lighting and scenes look very artificial and oddly staged. There's two characters that are introduced in a way that makes it feel like the story wants them to make mutant babies, which is really odd. And there's one character who has this very artificial sounding Irish accent. And I said before that the film focuses more on the lives of students, and I think that would be an interesting aspect to show Charles Xavier's School for the Gifted as being an actual school. Pretty pretty interesting. Um, there's some action scenes, especially the one at the carnival, which are entertaining, and the mutants' use of their powers during fights is enjoyable. Um, but then there are other complaints that I have, especially about the writing and the storytelling. So the characters unrealistically absorb information from huge books at um, after glancing on them at them briefly. And this is a cliche that's not limited to this movie, but generally there's a character, he gets a big book from the library about the topic he's interested, he opens it to the exact right spot, reads two lines, and then gives you like three paragraphs of exposition after his 5 second read, which is not how research works at all. I understand that they want to speed up the process to make it more interesting for the viewers, but yeah, no, not really. Um, so then there are some hacking scenes which rely again on these unrealistic hacking cliches. The villain's motivations are kind of unclear, even though I'm going to call him Murdoch, although that's not the villain's name. He does a great job, the actor, but like, why does he want to get these people? It's not really understood. And so the they do this thing in Marvel films where they have smart characters are physicists, and then because they're smart they can do anything. So this physicist has created a mind control device, and that's not how physics work, you know. A physicist wouldn't be able to create a mind control device. He might understand how it works in at an atomic level, but he wouldn't understand how the brain works enough to be able to create this device. Um, so this was excuse me, intended to be a potential launch pad for more Generation X content. And Generation X was kind of like X-Men, but for teenagers, which is weird because X-Men, I think, originally was designed for teenagers. But in the 90s and the late 80s, it kind of felt a little bit old-fashioned at the time. So they created this X-Men Generation X thing. And like with a few other movies I've talked about in the past on this channel, like The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, or The Death of the Incredible Hulk. Actually, I haven't watched that one. But this is a backdoor pilot. So they released this film and on television, and they wanted to gauge how interested people would be in watching a series based on Generation X, and it turns out that they weren't, because it was a bit of a failure. And it had a really high budget for a TV production, but it doesn't really reflect that, as I've mentioned before. There were a few controversies because Jubilee's character was changed from Asian to white. I don't think it makes that much difference because her ethnic background is not really discussed at all. And I'm not really familiar enough with the character to tell you if that's a really important aspect of it. But you know, in the early 90s, they were trying to make the character more commercially acceptable. And I mentioned before that there's a location that's connected later to X-Men films, and that is called Hatley Castle. So Hatley's Castle is Xavier's school for gifted students, which is the same in later X-Men movies. All right, here's my final conclusions, my final impressions about the film. The superhero costumes look cheesy, and it's kind of an odd choice to be the first X-Men movie. It's really, really weird. It's not good, but it's not disastrously bad either. So it doesn't fall into the so bad it's good. The acting improves after the first scene, which is good, and the actor who played Murdoch and who plays the villain is the standout. Yeah, no, and if you can find it, it's worth watching if you are super interested in X-Men and how they developed on film, because as I said, this is the first X-Men film. It's kind of like watching the 1977 Captain America film, although that film is horrible. I wouldn't recommend that on my worst enemy. This film is tolerable, let's say. A tolerable, like, 6 out of 10. Maybe 5 out of 10. All right. What do you think about this movie? Have you seen Generation X? If you have, leave your thoughts in the comment section. If you haven't, leave your thoughts in the comment section. And yeah, we can do it. We can watch all them all together, all of the series, all of the shows, all of the movies. We're in the 90s already. But yeah, when we get to the 2000s, it will be a bit rough. All right, if you like what I do, please like the video, please leave a comment, please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 10 subscribers by the end of June, which I think is quite doable and feasible. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.